2026 is not waiting for you to be ready. It is demanding that you take responsibility, make decisive moves, and finally step into control of your time, your choices, and your life. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a hard truth. You don't lack potential. You don't lack talent. You don't even lack opportunity. What most people lack is ownership of their time and their decisions. And if 2026 looks anything like the years before it, that's not bad luck. That's a pattern. Because time is the only currency you spend without realizing how expensive it is. You give hours to scrolling, days to procrastination, years to excuses, and then you wonder why life feels stuck. Here's the reality. Busy does not mean productive. Motion does not mean progress. Most people aren't tired because they're working hard. They're tired because they're working on things that don't matter. If you don't decide what your life is about, someone else will decide it for you. And they'll pay you just enough to keep you from leaving. Putting yourself first doesn't mean being selfish. It means being intentional, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot lead when you're distracted, and you cannot win if you refuse to discipline yourself. Motivation is unreliable. Feelings change. Circumstances shift. But discipline shows up whether you feel like it or not. The people who win don't wait to feel inspired. They move first, and inspiration catches up. Look at your life closely. Your results are not random. They are a reflection of your standards. What you tolerate continues. What you allow repeats. What you excuse expands. If you keep accepting average, average will keep accepting you. And here's where everything changes. Your future is not created by your wishes. It's created by your decisions. One decision to wake up earlier. One decision to stop entertaining distractions. One decision to say no to what's easy so you can say yes to what matters. Small decisions, consistently executed, create massive outcomes. 2026 does not need a new version of your excuses. It needs a new level of your ownership. No more blaming the economy. No more blaming your background. No more blaming people who are not coming to save you anyway. When you take ownership of your time, your habits, and your mindset, you take control of your life. So let me ask you this. What are you willing to stop doing? What are you finally willing to start? And who do you need to become to deserve the life you say you want? Put yourself first in 2026. Not your fears, not your distractions, not your comfort. Because the moment you take control, life has no choice but to respond. Time is the real currency, whether people want to admit it or not. Money is only a tool, and tools can be replaced. You can lose money and earn it back. You can make a bad investment and recover. But once time is spent, it is gone forever. There are no refunds, no extensions, and no second chances on yesterday. Every single person alive is paid the same daily allowance of time, yet the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is how they spend it. Most people treat time casually, as if they have an unlimited supply, and that mindset quietly destroys their future. Every day, time is either working for you or against you. There is no neutral ground. When you invest time into learning, building skills, strengthening relationships, or improving your health, it compounds. When you waste time on distractions, excuses, gossip, or endless entertainment, the cost is invisible at first, but devastating in the long run. People don't fail overnight. They fail slowly, one wasted hour at a time. They trade their future for temporary comfort and call it balance. The real tragedy is that most people don't even know where their time is going. Hours disappear into phones, conversations that lead nowhere, tasks that feel productive but create no progress. Being busy has become a badge of honor, yet busyness without direction is just disguised procrastination. If your calendar doesn't reflect your goals are just wishes. Time exposes priorities. What you consistently give time to is what you truly value, not what you say you value. When you understand that time is currency, your behavior changes. You stop giving it away cheaply. You become selective about who has access to you. You start asking better questions before saying yes. Is this moving me closer to who I want to become, or is it keeping me stuck where I am? People who win at life are ruthless with their time, not because they are selfish, but because they are focused. They understand that every yes to something unimportant is a no to something that matters. Time also has a compounding effect that most people underestimate. 1 hour a day invested into growth may not feel like much, but over a year, it becomes hundreds of hours of progress. Over 5 years, it separates leaders from followers. The problem is that compounding works both ways. Neglect compounds, laziness compounds, distraction compounds. The gap between where you are and where you could be is not created by one big mistake, but by thousands of small decisions to waste time instead of invest it. Another uncomfortable truth is this: people protect their money better than their time. They will argue over small expenses, but give away entire evenings to meaningless activities. They will complain about being broke while spending their best hours building someone else's dream, then come home too tired to work on their own. Time poverty is real, but in most cases it is self-inflicted. It comes from poor boundaries, lack of discipline, and fear of discomfort. When you finally respect time as the real currency, you stop waiting for the right moment. You understand that clarity comes from action, not thinking. You stop saying one day and start saying da. Or one. You realize that the future you want is being built right now, in this hour, in this decision. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Time doesn't care about your intentions. It only responds to your actions. If you want a different life, you must spend your time differently. Guard it, invest it, direct it with purpose. Because at the end of your life, you won't measure success by how much money you made, but by whether your time was spent on things that truly matter. Discipline beats motivation every single time, because motivation is emotional and discipline is structural. Motivation depends on how you feel, and feelings are unstable. Some days you feel inspired, confident, and ready to conquer the world. Other days you feel tired, uncertain, or distracted. If your progress depends on how you feel, your results will always be inconsistent. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline operates on decision, not emotion. It shows up because you said you would, not because you're excited. Most people wait for motivation before they act, and that's why they stay stuck. They think success starts with a feeling, but success starts with a commitment. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. When you do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it, momentum follows. Confidence grows after effort, not before it. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Motivation is loud at the beginning and silent in the middle. Everyone feels motivated when they start something new. New goals feel exciting. New plans feel powerful. But when the novelty wears off and the work becomes repetitive, motivation disappears. That's where discipline takes over. Discipline is what carries you through the boring days, the uncomfortable days, and the days when quitting feels easier than continuing. Most dreams don't die from lack of talent. They die from lack of discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. It is choosing long-term gain over short-term comfort. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust with yourself. And when you trust yourself, your confidence increases. People who lack discipline often struggle with self-belief, not because they are incapable, but because they have a history of breaking promises to themselves. Discipline repairs that relationship. The truth is, discipline simplifies life. When your habits are disciplined, your decisions become easier. You don't debate whether to show up, you just show up. You don't negotiate with distractions, you remove them. You don't wait to feel ready, you act because it's scheduled. Freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want, it comes from doing what you committed to. Structure creates freedom, not restriction. Discipline also removes excuses. When something is non-negotiable, excuses lose their power. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or lack of resources. You adjust and move forward. R&D anyway. Discipline forces you to find a way instead of an excuse. That mindset alone separates leaders from followers. Leaders do what must be done regardless of conditions. People often say they want change, but what they really want is change without discomfort. Discipline demands discomfort up front so you can avoid regret later. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts far longer. When you consistently choose discipline, you trade short-term struggle for long-term stability, growth, and peace of mind. At its core, discipline is identity. You don't become disciplined by trying harder, you become disciplined by deciding who you are. When you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, who shows up on time, who does the work regardless of mood, your behavior aligns naturally. Discipline becomes who you are, not something you force. Motivation may start the journey, but discipline finishes it. If you want results that last, Build systems, habits, and standards that don't depend on how you feel, because feelings change, circumstances change, but discipline keeps moving forward. And in the long run, the person who masters discipline will always outperform the person who waits to feel motivated. Most people don't realize they are living other people's agendas because it feels normal, it feels responsible, it feels safe. From the outside, it even looks successful. Busy schedules, packed calendars, constant obligations, endless responsibility. But underneath all that activity is a quiet truth. Movement without direction is not progress. When you spend your life responding instead of creating, you may be active, but you are not in control. Living other people's agendas usually starts subtly. You say yes to things you don't fully believe in because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You take paths that were chosen for you because they seem practical or accepted. You give your best energy to goals that benefit someone else, telling yourself you'll focus on your own life later. The problem is, later rarely comes. Time gets filled, not fulfilled. There is nothing wrong with responsibility, but there is everything wrong with losing yourself in it. When your entire day is designed by other people's priorities, your dreams become optional. You wake up reacting to emails, messages, demands, and expectations. By the time the day is over, you're exhausted, not because you worked on what mattered, but because you worked on what was urgent for everyone else. Urgency is not importance, and noise is not purpose. People who live this way often confuse being needed with being valuable. They feel important because others rely on them, but dependency is not destiny. Being constantly available can actually be a form of avoidance. It keeps you busy enough to avoid facing the hard questions about what you truly want and who you are meant to become. It's easier to follow instructions than to design a life. Another reason people live other people's agendas is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of standing alone. When you follow a path already approved by others, you don't have to take full responsibility for the outcome. If it doesn't work, you can say, that's what I was told to do. But when you choose your own direction, there's no one else to blame, and that level of ownership scares most people. Yet that same ownership is where freedom lives. Every yes you give away without intention costs you something. It costs focus. It costs energy. It costs time you'll never get back. And while you're busy building someone else's vision, your own vision weakens. Dreams don't disappear overnight. They fade from neglect. They get buried under meetings, obligations, and routines that were never designed with your future in mind. People who take control of their lives learn to pause before agreeing. They don't ask, can I do this? They ask, should I do this? They understand that boundaries are not selfish, they are necessary. Saying no to what doesn't align is saying yes to what does. When you protect your time and energy, you give your purpose room to grow. The moment you stop living other people's agendas is the moment you start leading yourself. You shift from reacting to planning, from being busy to being intentional, from existing to building. You realize that your life is not a support role in someone else's story. It is the main event. At the end of the day, no one else can live you, our life for you. No one else can fulfill your potential. If you don't choose your path, one will be chosen for you, and it will always benefit someone else more than it benefits you. Taking control means deciding that your goals matter, your vision matters, and your time is too valuable to be spent chasing someone else's priorities while your own future waits. Your results are not accidents. They are not random, and they are not the result of luck or bad timing. Your results are a mirror, and what they reflect back to you is your standards, not your goals, not your intentions, not what you say you want, but what you are willing to accept on a daily basis. Life always meets you at the level of your standards, never at the level of your desires. Many people aim high but live low. They talk about big dreams while tolerating small habits. They want exceptional outcomes while accepting average behavior. That disconnect is where frustration is born. You don't rise to the level of your hopes, you fall to the level of your standards. Whatever you consistently allow in your life becomes the baseline, and the baseline becomes the result. Standards show up in the smallest decisions. What time you wake up, how you speak to yourself, what you eat, how you manage your time, who you allow access to you, what you walk away from and what you tolerate. These choices may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they compound into your reality. Excellence is never an event, it is in force. D, through standards that are upheld even when no one is watching. One of the most dangerous things a person can do is normalize mediocrity. Once average becomes acceptable, growth slows down, comfort sets in, potential goes unused. People don't fail because they set standards too high, they fail because they set them too low and then defend them. They explain their limitations instead of challenging them. They lower expectations instead of raising performance. Your environment will always adjust to your standards. If you tolerate disrespect, you'll receive more of it. If you accept inconsistency from yourself, inconsistency will show up in your results. If you allow distractions to dominate your time, progress will always feel out of reach. Standards act like filters. They determine what stays in your life and what leaves. When standards are weak, anything can enter. When standards are strong, only what aligns remains. Raising your standards is uncomfortable because it requires change. It requires saying no to habits, people, and behaviors that once felt normal. It requires holding yourself accountable without making excuses. But discomfort is the price of growth. The life you want exists on the other side of standards you have not yet enforced. Every new level requires a new level of discipline, focus, and self-respect. It's important to understand that standards are not about perfection. They are about consistency. You don't need to be flawless, but you do need to be intentional. High standards don't mean never failing. They mean refusing to stay down. They mean correcting quickly, learning fast, and moving forward without self-sabotage. Standards give you a framework to return to when things go off track. When you raise your standards, your identity begins to shift. You stop asking what you can get away with and start asking what you expect from yourself. You no longer negotiate with your lower self. You become someone who does what they said they would do. That self-trust creates confidence, and confidence changes how you show up in every area of life. At the end of the day, your results will always tell the truth about your standards. If you want better outcomes, don't just set bigger goals. Set higher expectations for how you think, how you act, and what you tolerate. Change the standard, and the results will have no choice but to follow. Destiny is not some distant, mysterious force waiting for the perfect moment to appear. Destiny is being shaped right now, quietly and consistently, through the decisions you make every single day. Not the big, dramatic ones that get attention, but the small, repeated choices that seem insignificant in the moment. Your life is the sum of your decisions, and wherever you are today is proof of the choices you've been making up to this point. Many people overestimate the power of one big breakthrough and underestimate the power of daily decisions. They wait for a life-changing opportunity, a perfect plow, end, or a sudden shift in circumstances. But destiny doesn't respond to waiting, it responds to direction. Every decision points you somewhere, either forward or backward, closer to growth or deeper into stagnation. There is no standing still. Even doing nothing is a decision, and it has consequences. Decisions are powerful because they set things in motion. The moment you decide, your focus changes, your behavior adjusts, your standards rise or fall to match that choice. When you decide to tolerate less, you start acting differently. When you decide to commit, you find resources you didn't think you had. Clarity often comes after the decision, not before it. People who demand certainty before deciding end up stuck, while people who decide and then adapt keep moving forward. Indecision is one of the most expensive habits a person can have. It creates hesitation, self-doubt, and missed opportunities. While you're thinking, doubting, and waiting, time keeps moving. Life doesn't pause for uncertainty. Opportunities pass quietly, not with warnings, and regret often comes from the chances you didn't take rather than the risks you did. A wrong decision can be corrected, but no decision keeps you exactly where you are. Every decision also casts a vote for the type of person you are becoming. When you choose discipline over comfort, you reinforce strength. When you choose growth over ease, you build resilience. When you choose avoidance, excuses, or delay, you strengthen the identity. Thank you, you'll have to live with later. You are not just deciding what to do, you are deciding who to be. Over time, those identity choices shape your destiny more than any external factor ever could. People often blame circumstances for their lives, But circumstances are frequently the result of past decisions. The habits you practice, the relationships you maintain, the skills you develop, and the boundaries you set all began with a decision. Taking ownership of this truth is uncomfortable, but it is also empowering. When you accept that your decisions brought you here, you also accept that different decisions can take you somewhere better. Strong decisions create momentum. Once you commit, you eliminate alternatives and focus becomes sharper. Energy increases because your mind is no longer divided. Doubt fades when action begins. Even small decisions, when backed by consistency, can redirect the course of your life. One decision to change your routine, your environment, or your mindset can create a ripple effect that touches every area of your future. At the end of your life, you won't be judged by your intentions or your plans. You will be defined by the decisions you made and the actions that followed. Destiny is not found, it is chosen. And the power to shape it has always been in your hands, waiting for you to decide. 2026 requires ownership because nothing changes until responsibility is accepted. Ownership is the moment you stop pointing outward and start looking in. It is the decision to say, this is my life and I am responsible for how it turns out. As long as blame exists, progress is delayed. Blame keeps people comfortable, but comfort never creates growth. Ownership removes excuses and replaces them with action. Many people want better outcomes without taking full responsibility for the process. They blame the economy, their background, their lack of support, or past mistakes. While those factors may be real, they are not in control. The moment you give power to circumstances, you give up your ability to change. Ownership shifts the focus from what happened to what can be done next. It doesn't deny challenges, it refuses to be defined by them. Ownership is powerful because it gives you leverage. When you accept that your habits, decisions, and mindset shape your results, you also gain the ability to change those things. Complaining feels productive, but it produces nothing. Ownership feels heavy at first because there is no one else to lean on, but that weight is what builds strength. The people who rise are not the ones with the fewest problems, they are the ones who take the most responsibility. Taking ownership means being honest with yourself. It means acknowledging where you've been inconsistent, where you've settled, and where you've avoided discomfort. Growth begins with truth. Without honesty, improvement is impossible. You cannot fix what you refuse to face. Ownership demands self-awareness, and self-awareness is the foundation of transformation. In 2026, ownership also means intentional living. No more drifting through days on autopilot. No more reacting to life instead of directing it. You begin to plan, prioritize, and execute with purpose. You stop waiting for motivation, permission, or perfect conditions. You act because action is your responsibility. When you own your time, you stop wasting it. When you own your goals, you stop abandoning them. Ownership changes how you respond to failure. Instead of making excuses, you make adjustments. Instead of quitting, you learn. Failure becomes feedback, not a final verdict. This mindset separates people who grow from people who repeat the same year over and over. When you own your mistakes, you gain wisdom. When you deny them, you repeat them. Another part of ownership is accountability. You hold yourself to standards even when no one is watching. You stop negotiating with your lower self. You do the work because it's required, not because it's convenient. Ownership is doing what needs to be done without applause. It's building discipline when no one is clapping and consistency when no one is checking. 2026 does not need a new version of your excuses. It needs a new level of your commitment. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is responsible for your future but you. This is not a burden, it is freedom. The moment you fully own your life, you reclaim your power. Ownership is the dividing line between wishing and becoming. When you cross it, everything changes. Your mindset sharpens, your actions align, your results improve. If you want 2026 to be different, it won't happen by chance. It will happen because you decided to take full ownership of your life and act accordingly. As we step into 2026, remember this: your life will not change by accident. It will change by decision. You already have everything you need: time, ability, and opportunity, but only ownership turns those into results. No more waiting. No more drifting. No more living on autopilot. Put yourself first, not out of selfishness, but out of responsibility. Respect your time. Enforce your standards. Choose discipline over comfort. Decide with intention and act with consistency. The future you want is not ahead of you. It is being built by what you do next. 2026 is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to be committed. Because when you take control of your time, your decisions, and your actions, life has no choice but to move in your favor. This is your year to stop surviving and start leading. Own it.